Hi, today I'd like to share with you my recipe for these Thai chicken lettuce cups. They are full of veggies and protein. They are really balanced and, more importantly, a really delicious meal. So let me show you how I made them. First, I got all my toppings prepared because we all know toppings are what make food like this really fun to eat. I chopped some roasted salted peanuts. Then I chopped some cilantro. I cut off just the very end of the stems where they were getting brown, then finely minced the remaining stems and just gave the leaves a rough chop. Then I put together the sauce that will give this dish all of its bright, strong flavor. I added the juice of 2 limes, 2 tablespoons of fish sauce, 2 tablespoons of tamari, a tablespoon of sesame oil, 2 tablespoons of honey, and about 2 tablespoons each of crushed garlic and ginger. Then I gave it all a good whisk to get the honey dissolved and get everything combined, and I set that aside for later. Next, I got all of my veggies prepared. I started by cutting a whole bunch of scallions into 2-inch pieces. Then I diced up my bell pepper. I like to cut the cheeks off, leaving the stem and seeds. Then I slice it into long strips and then cut across the other way to create a small dice. And there's my supervisor checking in to see how everything's going. Next, I diced my carrot the same way as the pepper, making long strips first and then turning them and cutting across the strips to create bite-sized pieces. I wanted everything to be about the same size, just a fairly small dice, so the filling would fit nicely into the lettuce leaves. Then I prepped my mushrooms. I wiped all the tops off with a damp towel and removed the stems. You can definitely add the stems to this, but I usually save them to add to broth. I also saved all the scraps from the carrots and onions to add to broth later. Then I diced the mushrooms the same way as the other veggies, making about 4 or 5 slices in one direction, then turning the mushroom 90 degrees and making 4 or 5 slices again. The last thing to prep before I started cooking was my chicken. I'm using a plastic board for the chicken and placing a damp towel under it to stabilize the board while I'm cutting. I used 2 boneless, skinless chicken breasts to make 4 servings. First, I butterflied each breast, cutting horizontally through them. They were still a tiny bit frozen, which makes them a little easier to slice through. If yours are fully thawed when you're making this, you can put them in the freezer for 30 minutes or so before you start trying to slice through them. Next, I diced them the same way as everything else, just by making long strips and then cubes. You could also use ground chicken or turkey for this recipe and just eliminate having to cut up the chicken yourself. Now that all of my ingredients were ready to go, I got a tablespoon of avocado oil heating up in a large pot over medium heat. Once you start cooking this recipe, it comes together really quickly. So that's why I wanted to have everything ready to go before I even turn the heat on. And there's the real boss checking in. I don't think he's too impressed with my progress so far. After a minute, my oil was hot enough, so I added my chicken and then seasoned it up with some salt and pepper. I cooked that just for 4 or 5 minutes, just until there was no visible pink left on the chicken, and removed it from the pot when it was probably about 90% of the way cooked, because it'll finish cooking when I add it back in later, and I don't want it to get tough or dry and overcooked. Then I added another tablespoon of avocado oil, and my green onions and carrots. Covered that just for 2 or 3 minutes to help the carrots soften up a little bit, and the steam that created also helped to lift some of the brown bits from the chicken off of the bottom of the pot and get all that flavor in there. Next, I added my bell pepper and mushrooms. And covered that again for just a minute to get the mushrooms softened. Then I removed the lid, and once everything was looking nicely sauteed and all of the liquid from the mushrooms had evaporated, I added my chicken back in and poured the sauce all over everything. And I turned the heat up and let that come to a boil and reduce for 3 or 4 minutes. And once everything was looking hot and saucy, it was ready to go. We served it up with some nice crisp green leaf lettuce and topped it with the cilantro, peanuts, and some sambal oelek to spice it up. I didn't add any spice to the sauce because I wanted to keep it family friendly, and that way everyone can adjust to their desired spice level. These wraps are super yummy. I hope you'll give them a try. You can find a link to the full written recipe in the description box below. Thanks for watching.